Hey guys, Mr. B here. In this video, we're going to be going over chapter 4.2 on the structure of the atom. Alright, so in this section, we're going to be learning about the different parts of the atom and the different types of subatomic particles that exist, as well as the scientists that discovered those particles, and essentially how did we get from the model of what the atom used to look like to what the model of the atom looks like today. Right? So, there are three types of particles within an atom, and this probably is not new information to you. However, if it is, you can learn some stuff. So, there's three types of particles inside of an atom. We have electrons, protons, and neutrons. Okay. Now, each one of these particles, of course, was discovered by a different scientist, and each one has different properties. So we're going to get into each one. The first one here was discovered by an English physicist named J.J. Thomson back in the late 1800s, and the electron is the particle that he discovered where it is a negatively charged particle within the atom. Now, as to how he discovered this, he was actually running an experiment using cathode ray tubes, which nowadays are sort of old technology, but a cathode ray tube is essentially a glass tube that has a bunch of gas in here, and it's in a vacuum. And if you run an electric current through it, it will produce a beam of light, okay, as the gas particles get energized and excited. And this is how we used to light up TV screens and computer monitors and stuff, but we've moved away from these, and we have LCD and plasma and other stuff now. But regardless, he was performing an experiment using these cathode ray tubes. And what he would do is he would, again, produce a glowing beam of light as it goes across the tube. And what he did was he took a magnet and he put it on the outside of this cathode ray tube, and he noticed that he could deflect the beam with his magnet. And the other thing in particular that he noticed is that the beam was deflected away from the negative plate and towards the positive plate of the magnet. So this experiment to him basically said there's something inside of the atom that has an electric charge on it because I can affect it with a magnetic field. And now the gas particles, of course, that are inside this tube are made out of atoms. You know, the atomic theory had been around for quite a while. You know, John Dalton was the first one who came up with that. So J.J. Thomson, of course, certainly knew that atoms existed. They didn't have a whole lot of knowledge about what they looked like or anything, but you know, they knew that all material was made out of atoms. So he came to the conclusion that there was a charged particle inside the atom because you could affect it with a magnetic field, and that charged particle must be negatively charged because this beam was being repelled from the negative plate and attracted towards the positive plate. So he concluded that this particle was negatively charged. He called it an electron, and that was where we first discovered that particle. Now, at about the same time, we had another scientist doing basically the exact same experiment as J.J. Thomson, but he just saw the exact opposite of what J.J. Thomson saw. So rather than seeing the beam get deflected away from the negative plate and towards the positive plate, he saw the other way, which was the beam was deflected away from the positive plate and towards the negative plate. And so he saw the positive side of this, and then he basically came up with the idea that there's a positively charged particle inside of the atom, and he called those protons. So the electron and the proton were essentially discovered at about the same time by doing almost the exact same experiment, just seeing the opposite of results. So, all right. And then, of course, we do have the neutron that was discovered. Now, this one was discovered quite a while after the electron and the proton were discovered. And primarily that's because neutrons are a particle inside the atom that don't have an electric charge. So they are not affected by magnetic fields, which means they're a little bit harder to detect. And primarily the only way that you can really detect them is by trying to find the mass of an atom and then seeing that there are some kind of differences between masses of different atoms. So the neutron, again, was discovered a bit later because it's a little bit more tricky to discover, but it was discovered by another English physicist named James Chadwick. This is about around the time of like World War I when this was discovered. They're doing some work on subatomic particles and, you know, weapons and stuff like that. So of these three particles, the main ones to really note are the proton and the neutron have the same mass. Okay, so when it comes to the particle sizes, protons and neutrons have a mass of what we basically say is 1. Okay, they have 1 atomic mass unit, whereas the electron is very, very, very small compared to the proton and the neutron. So later on when we start talking about the masses of atoms, understand that the mass of an atom comes wholly from the protons and neutrons. It's not to say that the electron doesn't have a mass, but its mass is so small we basically just ignore it. Okay. Electrons, of course, have a negative charge. Protons have a positive charge. Neutrons have no charge. Okay, they're neutral. I would also make note of these little symbols. Okay, you'll see me write this little symbol E minus a lot, especially when we get into the next chapter and we talk more about electrons. So if you see this little E minus symbol, that is just abbreviation for an electron. P plus is a symbol for a proton, and N with a little 0 as an exponent is our symbol for a neutron. Okay, so these symbols will be used. I'll use them quite a bit when we write things out. So it's important to probably know those so you don't get confused on what those are later on. Okay, so after discovering these 3 particles, we had to update our model of the atom. Now, I don't know if I can draw in here, but we're going to try to do a little bit of a drawing to kind of show you what, you know what, why draw when I can just Google it? So we're going to do this. Let's go plum pudding model. Okay, so after we discovered these particles, we had a new model of the atom that we had to incorporate. So this is J.J. Thomson's model. We're going to copy this image. Maybe we can paste this in here. Let's go insert. Actually, you know what? Let's just do this. Let's just paste. Boom. Perfect. Okay. So we discovered our particles of the atom. And before that point, we had a model of the atom by John Dalton, and it was basically just a sphere. Okay, so John Dalton's model, which isn't shown here, was just he just thought atoms were little spheres. Didn't really know that there were parts inside of them because we didn't know that there were protons, neutrons, and electrons at the time. But when J.J. Thomson discovered the electron, we had to update that model. So this model of the atom that J.J. Thomson came up with is what we call the plum pudding model. And it basically takes the negatively charged electrons that he discovered, and he thought that they were kind of dispersed throughout this positively charged pudding or some kind of material that the rest of the atom was made up of. And so this was the model that we kind of held for a little bit of time after discovering the electron. Again, this model does not have the neutron in it because the neutron hadn't been discovered yet when J.J. Thomson came up with this. So this is kind of the model we had, but then from here, with the discovery of the neutron, there was then another discovery shortly afterwards by a scientist named Ernest Rutherford, and he basically discovered that the protons and the neutrons are in a very particular place inside of the atom, and the electrons are in their own particular place. So this is the discovery of the nucleus. Now, Ernest Rutherford, I guess, is apparently on New Zealand's currency. Now, I don't know if this is accurate anymore because this is probably a few years old, but either way, he made a pretty big discovery, and apparently people in New Zealand really liked it. So they put his face on their dollar bills. Who knows if it's still there, but regardless. So in 1911, he performed a very famous experiment called the gold foil experiment, right? So this is what happened. So what he did was he took a piece of radioactive material, which shot out alpha particles. Alpha particles are basically just protons, okay? He put it inside of a lead box so that they could shoot it and he could aim it, sort of like a laser beam. He put up a piece of gold foil here, a very thin piece, and around it he put a fluorescent screen. So when these alpha particles hit the screen would glow and he could see where they were making contact. And his idea is that if he shot these alpha particles at this piece of gold foil, if J.J. Thomson's model was correct, then it'd be like taking a cannonball and shooting it through a piece of tissue paper, and it would just blow holes right through it, and you're going to get all of these particles hitting the fluorescent screen on the backside. So he did this, and this is what he saw. Now, these ones that are hitting behind the gold foil was exactly what he presumed was going to happen. There's a little bit of deflections here or there just because, you make some contact with atoms, but for the most part, they're on the backside. However, he had these deflections in the front that didn't make any sense. This would be like if you took a cannonball, you shot it at a piece of tissue paper, and it bounced back at you. right? It just doesn't make sense. So he was thinking to himself, how is it possible that we had these deflections where they almost bounced back at the sensor, right? And so his thought was, all right, these alpha particles that we're shooting are positively charged protons, basically. And inside of the atom, maybe there is a very small, dense location that all the protons are located, so that's also positive. So when you shoot alpha particles at the atom, most of them will go right between the atoms because there's like nothing there but empty space. However, every once in a while, maybe an alpha particle hits one of these dense places where all the positive charge is, and because you have alpha particle, which is positive, and this center, which is positive, similar charges, of course, repel each other, and they will bounce off. And so this is where the idea of the nucleus came from. And basically what he said was is that inside of the atom, most of the atom is all empty space. And at the very, very center is all of the protons and the neutrons. And they're very tightly packed together in a very dense location. And between the nucleus and the center and the outside are the electrons. And in between there, there's just nothing. It's just empty space. And so this led to then the idea of a nucleus, and it kind of helped give us more direction as to what atoms look like. And if you were to draw a picture of what an atom looks like, I would guarantee you this is the model that you would draw. This is what came to be known as the nuclear model of the atom, or the Rutherford model of the atom. It's the model that if you were to ask anybody out on the street to draw a picture of what an atom looks like, this is probably what they would draw you, right? Same thing with you. This is probably what you would draw me. Now, granted, this is not the current model of the atom. We do not think atoms look like this. However, it's a good one because it does show a good, it does show like, if, you know, visibly where things are located. You have the nucleus in the center, you got the electrons buzzing around the outside, and in between the nucleus and the outside, there's just nothing but empty space. So, all right, anyway, that is it for this section notes. There is, of course, some practice problems which are in your quizzes practice after this. So hopefully this helped, but of course, if you have any other questions or need any more help, by all means, please email me or talk with me in class or just reach out. So, all right, guys, thanks for sticking with me. I'm Mr. B. See you in the next one. Bye.